Welcome to Speak Out. I'm Sandy Galef, a member of the New York State Assembly, representing parts of northern Westchester and parts of Putnam County. But today we're going to be talking about an issue that is a real New York State issue. It's called Energize New York. And we all know that as we have more residents and we have more technology, we're using more energy all the time, and at the same time we know we have to conserve. So we're going to really talk about that side of it, how we can use programs that are already in existence and get involved and see what ways we can make a difference in our state or in our communities and in the world, frankly. So I have two wonderful guests with me today. First of all, I'd like to introduce Alyssa Roth, who is the Education and Support Director for Energize New York.
Thank you so much for having us and talking about this today.
It's great to have you here. And Victoria Garrity, who's an Ossining Village trustee and a liaison to Energy New York. And I think you kind of started Energize New York, but I think you kind of started that in the Ossining area, didn't you?
It's the first big initiative of NWEAC, which is the Northern Westchester Energy Action Consortium. And then Energize just became such a strong program. It's an entity of its own now. But it was launched, the pilot was in Bedford. The Bedford 2020 group sort of took it on, and Lee Roberts, the supervisor there, was really instrumental in helping it take hold in Bedford. And that was the pilot, and they learned how to reach out to the community and how to really start getting people signed up and making it appealing to people and making it an easier process. And so once they'd gone through the initial steps in the pilot, they're ready to roll it out. And we in Ossining raised our hands and said, we want to be the first community to have the Energize program after the pilot. And so then Energize Ossining officially launched, I believe it was March of 2012, but things were getting moving before that.
Right. So tell us about Energize New York. What is this all about? What are you doing and what are your goals?
Okay. Energize New York's overarching goal is to reduce energy usage in New York State. And right now we're working primarily in northern Westchester in buildings. It's a common misconception that most energy is used and carbon emissions are used in cars or in industry, but in Westchester, over half of the energy used actually comes from buildings, and half of that energy is actually wasted. So if we could, in Westchester, really focus on energy efficiency in our residential buildings and commercial buildings, we could take a real chunk out of that. And it's really inspiring to work on because not only is it so great for the environment and improving all of these green initiatives, but it also has a trickle-down effect with saving money in our homes, which impacts local economies. And it also affects workforce development and jobs and sustainability in jobs in Westchester County.
Well, so that's so interesting because I guess when I'm driving around, I'm thinking about all the energy and the consumption that I have and all of that. But you're saying, really, you need to look at your house. You need to look at where you're working. We can't all affect where we're working as much as I guess we can in our own homes, although we can always say to the owner of the building what we think needs to be done. How do people go about doing this?
Well, in your home, most homes in Westchester were built before 1970. And in 1970 is when the energy codes changed. So even if your home was built after 1970, it's not as energy efficient as it could be. But the vast majority of homes have a lot that they could work on. So the number one thing that contractors look at in your home is insulation and air sealing, and that's also coupled with the way the mechanics work in your building. And what we call this, the whole house approach, is a new way of looking at how homes function. It's called building science, and it's looking at your house as a living, breathing organism that changes energy usage based on behaviors in the home, the way the home was built, and environmental factors. So we really encourage homeowners to get an energy assessment first, find out about your home, get educated about where you could specifically save money in your home, and then to move forward with some energy upgrades.
Is that what you were doing, Victoria, with the Energize Austining aspect of it, trying to get people to do an assessment of their house? Was that one of the major issues?
And Alyssa was pointing to some of the things from, putting my political hat on for a moment that really matter to a community, which is where are people going to spend their money? Are they going to spend it on heating their home where 30% of it might be going through the little holes and cracks where their walls meet their ceiling that they aren't even aware of that could be addressed? Or are they going to be able to go out to dinner another time in our community? So it is about helping residents to spend their money in a way that benefits all of us, including hiring local contractors to do this work. And it's that's a big part of it. But when it came to the folks who we raised our hand, it was the environmental community that said, we want to lower our greenhouse gas emissions. We want to help our communities achieve the sustainability goals that the village and the town of Austining and so many communities across Westchester have to just be less wasteful, to use our resources more wisely. So that's where it started. But the result is it's really financially beneficial for homeowners and for the communities that they live in.
So if you can save money, you have to spend a little money to save money in the long run on your energy costs, so then you can go out for dinner.
Yeah, well,
and if I could even
and
add one more
you don't
thing.
necessarily have to spend out of pocket money, right? Maybe you
No,
can
not
explain
at
the
all.
financing.
There's lots of financing, but one more thing I wanted to add is doing these energy improvements also increases the wealth of your property. So if you can increase your property value, that's another way we're putting money back into the community. I can talk about financing now, or if you want, do you want to go through how the program works?
Let me look at how the program works. I don't know whether they've been able to put up yet on the screen a house. But you brought a slide with a house, and I think it has dollar signs in different places, right?
Yes.
Leslie, why don't you tell us what that's all about?
So there's 2 steps to participating in the Energize New York program. The first step is to get the energy assessment, and then the next step is to do the upgrades. And that slide is showing in the energy assessment where a contractor will look, or a home performance professional will look for energy leakage, air loss in your home. There are lots of different types of energy assessments on the market right now. I'm sure if you open your phone book, you'll find contractors offering free $99 energy audits, stuff along those lines. But the thing that's so great about Energize New York is all of the contractors are BPI certified. And that stands for the Building Performance Institute. So they've undergone extensive testing and exams in building science and the energy efficiency field to look at your house, like I said before, in a whole house approach using diagnostic tools. So it's not just a clipboard walkthrough and counting light bulbs. It is really looking at the scientific impact of how the different systems of your home interact with each other. So some of those things those dollar signs show is insulation could be old and leaky, and without having air sealing, that's going to result in heat loss through your attic or through your rim joists in your basement. Also, not having updated or tuned mechanical devices will add on top of that problem to use additional energy that's not needed. And one of the really common misconceptions that people always ask me about is windows. It turns out that windows aren't the most energy efficient thing you could do in your home. Most of the time, no matter what you do, if you stand in front of your window, it's going to be cold. It's a piece of glass. But if we can figure out how to change the airflow in your home so we are not creating something called stack effect, or we're not creating convective loops in your home, which are one of the things the contractors are going to look at, then we can make your home warm and comfortable in other ways that have a much better return on investment.
Well, I had a home assessment, and I don't know whether I had the type of contractor that you're talking about or not, but I remember following him all over my house, and he had an instrumentation that would talk about the air that was coming through, just places I never would have thought about. Yes, around the chimney, around the fireplace, and it was framed with wood. And I hadn't realized that part of it, I guess either the mortar, whatever that had been behind it, had probably dissolved over time. And he just showed me how the cold air was just coming right in there. And then in the my kitchen, even in some of the places in my kitchen that were against the wall, the outside of the house, you could see that the cold air was coming in there. And I was just so surprised. I mean, it just, I guess I just don't think about that. I don't go around with my hand or instrumentation to find out where all the leaks are. So I think I had a lot of leaks in my house.
Yeah, it sounds like the tool that they used was something called a blower door test, which is a really cool tool that the contractors use. They attach a fan to your door and are able to pull all the air out of your home, depressurize the house, and then measure with a manometer exactly where the heat is leaking out of your home. And that way, they're not just blanket insulating everything and hoping it works. They can target the specific areas so you can pay for what you need and not for what you don't.
And sometimes it's as specific as a light switch
Exactly.
or just the tiny perimeter around windows or doors. Yeah.
Right, and you're just not aware of that. So each little thing that they can improve, because I know he went around and we had a lot of sealing going on, that kind of thing, which I felt really good about afterwards. So are all those, I mean, are those major or minor issues? I mean, I guess my attic is probably the, as you showed from the slide, your attic is probably the best place to start in. But are all places good?
In general, we like to take a top-down approach because heat rises. So if we can stop the heat from leaving the most common place it's going to leave, that's where we're going to get the most bang for our buck. But a tool that Energize New York offers, which I think is really valuable, we have a professional called the Energy Coach. He is BPI certified, but he doesn't work for any specific contractor in Westchester County. And he will take the assessment report that the contractor gives to you after the assessment, come to your home for an hour, it's free, and review it with you to decide which improvements are the best in your home and help you prioritize where you're going to save the most money. Because like you were saying, there's some places where it seems like this is going to be a great idea, but you're just not sure because every home is different. So the Energy Coach can look at that assessment and help you decide where you want to spend the money that you have to spend on this.
An Energy Coach. I love it. Have you been an energy coach? Are you
I'm not nearly qualified enough to be an energy coach. But there's one other real big benefit to having your home go through the upgrade. And for some people, that can be, and it sounds like perhaps you know someone who did this, getting to sort of reclaim some space in your home that might be so uncomfortable. For example, a woman emailed me just this week. And said, I'm finally going to do it. I've heard you talking about these, go to energizeossining.org for months. So I finally did it and signed up, went through the assessment. And what she's hoping to do is to be able to use the room above the garage in her house as an office because up until now, all winter, it's just so cold that it's too uncomfortable to be able to use it from, December through February. And so she signed up with that in mind to be able to really reclaim some space in her home. And making your home more comfortable is one of the top reasons that some people who go through the program are grateful that they did it and could be their primary motivating factor.
Yeah, and it's really easy to sign up. All you have to do to sign up is go to energizeny.org, click on sign up, and there's an application right there. It's really easy, but if you have any questions about it, you can call us at the office and we'll help you fill it out. The assessment program is actually a New York State program. It's run by NYSERDA, which is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. So the reason Energize is here is because we know that state programs aren't always the easiest thing to navigate your way through. So I am in the office every single day to answer your calls and help you with any questions you have throughout the whole process.
So I think one of your clients, so to speak, was my son. Victoria was actually referring to that. And he had a room upstairs, and it was too cold or it was too hot or it was just not workable at all, and was able to improve it, and now his office is upstairs. So in addition to the other person you were talking about, reclaiming space over a garage, you know, and it's wonderful because you do get more value out of your home when you do that. So if somebody calls up, they get an appointment. Is that how that happens? They get an appointment for somebody to come and look at their home?
The first step is to fill out the application, and then I send that over to NYSERDA. And once your application is approved, you can pick any contractor who's BPI certified to do the assessment. So they would call the contractor themselves. Another tool that Energize New York has to help homeowners through this process is we've narrowed down the list of 70 certified contractors in New York to 8 contractors that are local to Westchester, do a significant amount of work in our county, and have great customer service reviews. So homeowners can pick from anyone on that list, call them up, and just make an appointment.
Now, we talked about the homeowners, but let's go back to the business, which you started out with a little bit too. You know, I'm in an office building. I don't own the building, obviously. I just rent. The state rents space for me to have my office there. And, you know, we find times when we have recommendations for our landlord. And can people do that too? How does one, what would you suggest if you may not own the property, but you rent space and you see that there are some issues? How do people get involved that way?
Sandy, you're ahead of the curve.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about the next steps for the program, really.
Oh, okay. Next steps.
NYSERDA's got a lot of great programs for commercial properties. Right now, Energize New York is primarily focused on residential. However, we've got a commercial financing product, which is really great. It's called PACE Financing, and it's a new product in New York State, which you can learn all about. The website is energizeny.org/finance.
And there are actually, I'm aware that there are 4 businesses, commercial properties, that are going through the process, and 2 of them are in Peekskill. So, and they really were already on board with understanding the benefits of doing energy efficiency upgrades to their commercial properties. And this program is providing them with the financing option that is similar to what we have with the financing options for residential right now through the Energize program.
That's great. So let's talk about the financing of all of this. Because after, you know, I give personal experiences because I think it's helpful sometimes. I did have an assessment done of my house, and you know, I had basement to do. I'm in an old house, basement, and I had the attic, and I had windows, and I had all these leaks and light bulbs that weren't all right. I had a lot of things going on. And then, you know, I kind of had to decide. I couldn't spend all the money on that at one point. How do I go about doing it? And I'm not sure I had the coach. I don't think I had the coach that would, you know, give me some guidance on this. But if I wanted to do the whole thing, or anybody wanted to do everything that has been suggested, how do they go about the financing if it's just a little bit too much to get into? And they can't, you know, otherwise they're going to have to take steps, you know, as they go along and continue to put money into new programs.
Yeah, you can do the project in pieces and finance it in small parts, or you can do the whole thing and finance it at once. One of the things that's so great about this program is there's incentives, and there's financing, and there's tax credits. So because NYSERDA isn't funded through taxes, you'll get a 10% incentive, 10% back on every single thing you do, regardless of your income. And if you're income eligible, there's another program where you can get up to 50% back. Then on top of that, you get a tax credit, and then you can also finance the balance that you're going to pay for. There's 2 financing options, but the one that's really exciting right now is called OnBill Recovery. It's a new way of thinking about financing energy efficiency projects because you pay for your upgrades through the money you're already saving from them. So, and the other thing that's great about it is it's actually a line item on your utility bill. So you don't have a separate loan to pay every month. You just get your NYSEG bill or you get your Con Ed bill, and it's right there. And you pay that every month.
So for example, correct me if I'm wrong, this is my understanding. If you're currently paying about $200 a month to Con Ed for your power, your energy usage, and you do your upgrades, the on-bill financing, what it allows you to do is to continue paying about that same amount every month. But because your energy costs have decreased, all that you're no longer having to pay in energy because you have this wonderfully upgraded, efficient home, you're paying the same amount, and the balance that you're no longer paying energy costs is paying off the upgrades.
Exactly.
That's the foundation for. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And actually, that was legislation was passed by the Albany legislature
Correct.
in 2012, right? That allowed for that.
It was passed in 2011, and
Oh,
it went
okay.
into effect
Right,
in
okay.
2012.
Oh, good. Right.
And the kicker that's so great about this is that it's actually attached to the utility bill.
Right.
So if you were to move out of your home before the energy upgrades are paid off, you can transfer that to the new homeowner. And in most cases, they're happy to take that on because it's the same energy bill that they would have been paying before, but they have this increased value in the property now.
That is really great because a lot of people, whether you're an older person, you think you might be selling your house within the next 5 years and maybe you don't want to put the money in it, or you're somebody who has jobs and you're going from place to place, you live in a community only 5 years, and do you want to put money into that house and so on, or you're young and you know that your family's expanding and you're going to get a bigger house. So I think that that financing is great, that it goes with the house. So as you walk away from it, you pay down some of the costs, and the rest of the costs will go to the next person who moves into the house. And after a while, if everybody were to do this, it would just become so customary in the real estate market, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and you have the option. It doesn't have to go to the next homeowner. You can pay it off,
Right.
or you can pass it on. So it
Right.
depends on what works for you.
Right.
It's really
but
great.
some of the things I know, I have an English Tudor house, so I have these crank windows, and they're really difficult, and it's a little hard to. I could replace them with something that wasn't a crank window, but it kind of goes with the English Tudor house. So, but to replace them is relatively expensive with a similar kind, but a good, a much better insulated glass. Although you said before it's not all the heat goes out through the glass. It'll still be cold. But I think that would have been, because I just thought it was too much for me to be able to accommodate all of those windows all over the house at one point. So I think this plan would have encouraged me to do that, and it probably encourages
You still
me
can
today.
do it.
Yes,
I'm
right.
happy to walk you through the
But
program.
it wasn't available when I was looking at it. So there's so many new things that are available. I know
Right, this
we
is
passed
now.
legislation to help people in that situation.
No, I was just going to say, as far as the upgrades that are recommended when the assessment is done, which is really a pretty interesting thing. I've seen it done at a few different houses now with the blower door, and they often go around with the infrared camera so you can actually see, which maybe you saw an actual depiction of where the heat is escaping. One house was completely uninsulated, and the spaces between the windows were actually the windows had better insulation than the walls between them, because it was such
Oh my
it was
goodness.
just not, it was built when energy costs were nothing, and there was no thought
Yeah.
about renewable energy or the end of petroleum energy. So he's really enjoyed a particularly more comfortable home now. But all of the things, because this is a NYSERDA program, all of the proposed upgrades that the contractor can put in the report, they must demonstrate a certain return, correct? Like a certain level of efficiency upgrade, so that we know that it's worthwhile.
Right, so it must pass something we call a TRC test, and that means the savings to investment ratio is greater than 1. So you're going to save more than you invest within a certain time period, but the life of the measure.
Thank you.
Otherwise, it's not necessarily recommended.
Right,
Is that right?
Exactly. The emphasis on this program is where you're going to get the biggest return on your investment in the shortest amount of time. So, for example, windows have a payback period that can be greater than 40 years in most cases. So if you're going to spend a couple $1,000s, you'll get that back probably in 6 or 7 years if you choose to put it into insulation or heating equipment.
Right. So what about the contractors? You have a list of good contractors and so on. What if somebody didn't go to that list and maybe the home improvement wasn't what it was supposed to be? Have you heard of any issues? I don't know whether locally, because sometimes people come along and try to sell a product and they really don't know what they're doing. They haven't gotten that expertise. Do you warn everybody?
Well, you can only participate in the program if you choose a BPI contractor.
Okay.
And as long as you use a BPI contractor, like I said before, I think there's about 70 in New York State, then if you were to have any hesitation about the work, there's recourse. And NYSERDA will sponsor that. You can get a quality assurance test for free. And any improvements or measures that were supposed to be installed or upgraded that weren't done properly have to be fixed for free. And Energize New York can definitely help homeowners work through that process. Unfortunately, if you don't use a BPI contractor and it's just someone that doesn't have a third-party oversight, there's not much that anyone can do to make sure you get what you deserve.
Right, we don't get all those benefits. So in the Austin area or in other communities that are in this wonderful consortium that you're involved with, are they seeing many people doing this? Are we starting to really expand?
Well, you know, the whole purpose of the Energize was to have people in the community like myself, and I have another partner in the town of Austining who I work with through Green Austining, to spend more time in the community, you know, spreading the good word. Because the numbers, I just updated the numbers to make sure I had it accurately. There were only 37 houses in Austining between 2001 and 2008, so over a 7-year period, that did the upgrade. And then just in the following 2 years, 2011 to 2013, there were 62 homes that were done in, you know, less than half the time.
Right.
And that's part of why Energize exists, which is
Right, and Energize, I don't know, Energize started then. So
Yes.
this is before Energize and after Energize.
So Energize started in 2011, yes.
Exactly.
And so we've
So people are starting to get some benefit. They're getting some financial benefits
right.
to encourage them to do it too.
Well, and the Energize program, really what it is it's a very small but mighty office of people who are, their sole job is to help us navigate the system. That's
Right.
It's a support system to go through the process. So anytime you have a question or any hesitation about anything, you just call us up and we fix it.
That's great. What's your number again?
914-302-7300.
That's great. And then Victoria, in the Austin community, do they call you?
Oh,
They can.
I have had people contact me. I have, for people who are not very comfortable online, I have driven over to their house and brought them a paper application so that they can do all of it by phone and in old-fashioned pen and paper. And we also have assessment assistance hours at rotating. Is it always Thursdays at the libraries, going from Peekskill, Croton, Austining, Cortland. Every Thursday evening. In Austining it's from 6 to 8, the third Thursday, but
I don't know if it's
Right
always on Thursdays,
okay.
but it's
check with
every week.
check with your local local library. And actually, in Austining, because we have a lot of Spanish-speaking homeowners, we also have one of the folks at the library is trained, who's bilingual, to help people with the application process. So if the computer seems overwhelming, we have some of the paperwork in Spanish, and you can also go to the Austining Public Library, and one of the people there is trained to help you with the application, which it's really very simple, but it is intimidating to do something unfamiliar.
Right.
So
Well, this is all new and different, but wonderful examples of lots of activity that's going on. And I know you had a house that you showed one time. Just to give people an idea of what can happen, and people, you know, sharing their bills and the decrease, because I saw an immediate decrease in my bill when I was doing the flooring, the basement, and I just saw a great deal of cutback. So I want to thank you both so much for what you're doing and how you're helping everybody, my constituents and beyond, with a great Energize program in New York. And
Thank you so much for your encouragement and your support. We're so happy to be here.
good, it's great. And if there are any questions that you have, please give me a call at my office, 914-941-1111. Thank you so much for watching. Get your home energized. Thanks.